home studio is a bit of a mess, and
Yeah.
so I got a few figures here, and then I got my room upstairs with my recent Lord of the Rings statues, which I've been feverishly getting into. My
Nice,
latest
nice.
midlife crisis. But there you go.
That's fantastic, man. Cool. Well, look, thanks for joining us. We may as well start with that because that's one of my questions later, but we're on that track. I know you're into your sci-fi and your comic books and stuff. What have you been into lately, other than Lord of the Rings statues?
Yeah, I'm always massively. I don't know. I'm always massively into that. It's always kind of have been, but I suppose the past few years with not just the pandemic, I kind of went through. Because I'm taking a break from Napalm at the moment, which I'm going back into it for the Australian leg, and had a bit of a weird. I mean, I'll just might say it, a bit of strange semi breakdown in a way. Life got weird,
Okay.
So I'm on this kind of bizarre, kind of Jungian type, I don't know, self analysis thing, and I found things like Lord of the Rings interesting because there's this journey, this quest, whatever, kind of vibe. So I find those movies always quite therapeutic. This background stuff, of course. So yeah, but I've always loved kind of like I love my Godzilla, early Hammer horror movies, up to like mid-80s movies and stuff. So I got a House by the Cemetery figure recently, which I was into, and then of course the new Insidious movies just come out. So I was with the wife and family over in Japan, seeing their grandparents, their kids' grandparents. That I've been watching loads of horror movies this week, really.
That's cool.
Stuff like and making some kind of bizarre electronic music here at the moment. Well, it was yesterday. I will be a bit later on. But yeah, it's the whole collecting figures thing. I think is I stopped for a while, and then I've recently kicked it back in again. So you have to be careful though, because it can be. It's a wound into the wallet. It can be,
yeah, that's right. But sometimes you just have to have it. You know what I
mean? Well, that's it. Sometimes you do, and I don't know what it was. A few months back, I was taking a break, and I was like, "Oh, I need one of those huge Sauron statues." And so, of course, I started scouring the net, and some of those ridiculous prices. But I managed to find one. And I think one of the horns was a little bit damaged, and I thought, and that because of that, it was like much cheaper. And I thought, well, I can fix that guy. So I got it. And that lo and behold, off I went, and there you go.
No, that's cool, man. You mentioned House by the Cemetery. I put out an album based on Fulci films. I love Fulci, man. It's so good, man. Yeah.
It was something about them. So I mean, House by the Cemetery, The Beyond, Zombie Flesh Eaters. I mean, did you ever see there's like a gangster one you call them, the Naples Connection? Did you ever see that one?
No, I've seen the spaghetti westerns, but I haven't seen that one yet.
I mean, not all this stuff was great, but that one's interesting because it's a gangster movie, but it's still insanely violent. Do it, but something about the Beyond, and I mean, I kind of based the first Dark Sky Burial album around Lucio Fulci movies because they're always overdubbed. They had that strange look. But yeah, House by the Cemetery, it's a great one.
Yeah. Actually, talking about Dark Sky Burial, what prompted you to start doing that kind of music that's so different? Like, it's cool, but it's so different from everything else you're involved in. What sort of made you decide to do that?
I've always explored different kinds of music, and I suppose it would be late 80s. I came across an experimental group called Coil. And they did do some music for the first Hellraiser movie that was never used. So it was that got me into this really dark loop based. It was the early stuff. It is quite atmospheric and horror style, but then of course they veered off and did various kind of styles. I suppose some stuff could be really beautiful, sounding. That always kind of stayed with me, and it was kind of like a foot in the door of experimental music. And also, as a young kid, which the book sort of talks about, is I was massive into Doctor Who and strange sci-fi movies and all these weird bleeps and blops and strange, and then when the pandemic kicked in, it was just an opportunity that I'd been already sort of researching to start doing this strange music. It's for me primarily, and I have a small following, and that's okay. I'm happy with that. It's
Mm.
I like the idea, like the moment I can make some music, and I'm not like an expert on it, and I try my best, and then I can just put a record out on Bandcamp, and it satisfies
Mm.
something inside me. But
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's interesting building loops, and which I do with other stuff as well. But because it's electronic, I guess it is maybe a surprise to some people. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's still got that cool dark sound, like it's definitely it's great music, Yeah.
Yeah, and well, I mean, ultimately, it would be nice to compose some music for a horror film or something like that, and
Mm.
you never know. You never know.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So yeah, you mentioned the book that's coming out later this year, Life and Napalm Death. What prompted you to decide to write that in, now in 2023?
It was just after during the pandemic again. It was obviously strange and weird for everybody, and certainly I did a lot of soul searching at that point because I'd never been at home for such a long period of time.
Mm.
And it certainly changed my outlook on how much I want to play live, maybe in the future. I still want to play live, but I realized, God, I've just been touring for like 6, 7 months a year constantly,
Mm.
and then you realize that when this was suggested at first, I was like, it's a funny kind of idea in a way, but you realize all of a sudden it just dawns on me that I've been, I started my first band in '85, and that was it's a long period of time, and
Mm. Mm.
I tend to remember the funny stories or certain things around Napalm Death recordings more so than probably last week, and then and it just seemed like something I'd like to. And my mum passed away last year, and I come from a all weird things really. Where I come from a really small village in Araway, and growing up in a village, you're like, this sucks. I want to go to the big city, and you go to the big city and experience that. But then you sort of going back home again now and realizing, well, there's some quite important things here that molded you, or not molded, but pushed you in the direction that you want to go.
Mm.
And so I thought, why not? I mean, a journalist friend of ours, a guy called Dave Everly. So he came down, asked the questions, transcribed it for me.
Cool.
It probably would have took fucking years for me trying to type it down, but I think he did a pretty good job of doing it. And hopefully, it's interesting for people who are interested.
Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, that's cool. Venomous Concept. The new album is honestly, like, I love the earlier stuff, but this is definitely my favorite. Do you think the approach was different this time around with the Venomous Concept album?
Yeah. The music for that record actually kind of existed in demo form before the fourth album.
Oh wow, okay, yeah.
And I had this trip in my head where it was just like it's hard to. It's difficult when you try and explain it in some ways, maybe because the Venomous thing is, it's a friendship thing. But the first few albums, of course, they're punk and they're upbeat, but I always kind of felt was like, well, this is good, but are we not going through the motions? That's a wrong word to say, but it's like, what? Because, we would get together and we're rocking out in DC and Husker Du and Black Flag and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, well, wouldn't it be interesting to do a record that encompasses that, and when the pandemic hit, it was like, oh fuck, all this time. And so I went out on a limb and basically bankrolled the album, because I knew that it was going to be something a bit more challenging vocally for Kevin. And Kevin came over. I think he came over in like September, October during the pandemic in 2020. Just kind of waltzed into like England because at the time it was quite bizarre. And driving down nervously to the studio, and but yeah, we were trying. I wanted to do something which I think still is Venomous, but it moves forward, and production wise, I wanted to step it up a lot really. And our set engineer and producer Simon Effamy came in, and that was good because Simon really pushes you to do different things. And there's a new studio out in Cambridge, a studio called Headline Music Studios, which is the guy there, Piers, is great. All kinds of pedals and stuff. And I'm really happy with it. I think we'll hopefully do some shows in England early next year, and fingers crossed,
Yeah.
when we can do our thing,
Yeah, that's cool. Some of the tracks are very Killing Joke. Is that fair? Like Fractured and that kind of thing. Like in a good way. I love Killing Joke. Was that an influence? Do you think?
Well, Killing Joke's always an influence for me. I mean, it's kind of strange when people say that about Fractured. I mean, I sing on that one, and I suppose people say there's a bit of Jazz Coleman there. But I think originally when I thought of Fractured, to me, but of course it's always a strange. It was kind of like the sort of heavier parts of Husker Du, Bob Mould meets, and Us by the Trail of Dead.
I mean,
yeah,
I can see that. Yeah,
a little bit. And because of the kind of melodic thing, Kevin was sort of looking at me. I'm like, you can sing this. He's like, and I'm like, well, I'll have a go since I'm not trying to be a singer, I suppose, but moving towards that thing, after years of trying to sing to your kids, you realize it's good practice, really. And, so, yeah, I mean, the Killing Joke is evidence in a lot of things I do, really, because such an influential band,
Yeah, of course. Actually, talking about your kids, the credit on the opening track is Azumi. Is that your daughter saying, sure, I do, right? Yeah. What a great way to start it,
Because the title's kind of the Good Shit Lollipop, insane title. But Kevin's kind of, I don't know what kind of humor it is. It's brilliant humor. He was having a little bit of a rough time at one point, and as we all do, and he had to say, man, that person's out there, man. They're on the Good Shit Lollipop, and I was like, what the fuck are you on about, And I was like, that's a great album title, The Good Shit Lollipop. So out there and bizarre. And so, of course, we found a clip from the old movie with Shirley Temple, I think it is.
Oh yeah.
And then of course, a couple of people say, well, they might sue you if you use original. And I'm like, really? And I just played it to my daughter, and she just managed to mimic it perfectly.
I wish Mother was here.
This is the Candleland Hour for all good children. The orchestra will play our theme song.
You know that song, don't you?
Sure I do.
Well, then sing it.
We took that and recreated it. But so yeah, she gets embarrassed when I play it, but she's only about, I think she then probably 6 or 7, I think.
Yeah,
not bad.
That's special, man. That's cool. That's there forever. That's really cool. Yeah. So you're involved with so many awesome bands. How do you juggle them? Like, your calendar system must be pretty impressive, yeah.
It can be difficult for sure. And also, trips to the studio to record stuff. I've just finished working on a record which was going to be a Dark Sky Bear album, but because it's loads of singing from me, and it's electronic and I don't know, musically going in a direction. I don't know. There's loads of things going on. Trips to the studio become with school and stuff, because that's what I've been doing the past few months as well. Sort of balancing being creative, but also taking the kids to school. It's just around the corner. It's quite an interesting thing to do for me. I'm quite into it because a lot of times you're away on tour, but I've managed to find the time. Right now, as I said, my family's in Japan, so that's giving me more time to do the weird things I like to do, which is mainly make music, really. And but yeah, it can get challenging. It'll become a little bit easier in September when my son starts school proper.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which I think will be a good thing for me, because I can go right 9 till 5. I'm doing not just making music, but sometimes you just we all need time to sit there and go, all right, how the fuck am I going to get through this week? What am I going to do? Think. And I can go back up and then maybe turn the phone off, which I don't always do, and then just go here with kids, eat, simple stuff. Because lo and behold, about 8, 9 in the evening, some American is going to come and give me a call, which is cool, but you've got to try. It does get difficult to time manage for me. really.
Yeah, no, of course. So you're saying it probably won't be Dark Sky Burial, the music you're working on. What should we be looking for? What is that got a name yet? What's the thing you're working on?
I'm still sort of deciding on that really.
Okay.
Some of the stuff did start in that mold, but it just kept on evolving. And once the vocals were on it, it was like, it needs to be something. It's related for sure, because this past few years for me has been a lot about trying to find my authentic self, I suppose, for want of a better thing. We wear quite a lot of masks, and I'm trying to, I don't know, I'm not going to get into some weird psychological rant,
do it if you want. I'm keen, but it's up to you.
It's been quite a few dark years, at times, not always, and then I've used that creatively, musically and lyrically, which I always tended to do, really, even with Napalm back years ago. I tried to. Barney's lyrics tend to be more. I don't know. The world is not. He has specific subjects in the world, which I feel strongly about. I always feel like I'm still dealing with stuff that's in here, and that's hard enough in some ways sometimes. So yeah. If I lost the train of thought what I was talking about, but
that's all right.
it's I don't know when it's going to come out really, but it's another. It's a couple of names I'm thinking about, but I haven't decided yet.
Yeah, nice. Well, I'm definitely keen to hear it, man, because that sounds like something right up my alley. That sounds cool. So yeah, obviously Napalm Death are making their way back to Australia. I've got my ticket. Very much looking forward to it. Have you guys started jamming yet or anything? Getting ready for the shows?
There's going to be some rehearsals prior to over there. I think it's the set wise we've been doing it for a few months now, really. So it'll be variations on that, really. But I mean, Danny's the one that tends to sort of get in there and keep his chops up, really. But it should be. It's there's usually going to. Well, sometimes there's two different sets depending on how we kind of play it, really. But for me, as I said, I've been taking a bit of a break as well, so it's going to be. It'll be interesting not interesting is the wrong word. It's going to be a fresh thing again in some ways. Sometimes we play so many shows, you become a little bit, I don't know, not desensitized to it, but it'll be. It's been a while since I've been on stage with Bon, so it's going to be watching where he moves around a lot, man. You got to keep yourself. You got to keep your wits better.
Yeah, fair enough. Cool. All right, look, we are out of time. Thank you very much for your time, Shane. Much appreciated. I'm really looking forward to seeing you on stage again, man. Thank you.
It should be good, man. Take care, man. Cheers.
Cool. Have a good one, man. See ya.